Samuel Alito smirked, his expression sharp and unreadable, as the tension on set became almost unbearable. The cameras rolled, the lights burned hot against the glossy stage floor, and the studio audience leaned forward in their seats, sensing something was brewing beneath the surface. The Kelly Clarkson Show had become known for its upbeat atmosphere, filled with music, laughter, and candid conversations, but on this particular day, something felt different. David Boreanaz, the charismatic actor beloved for his long run on Bones and more recently SEAL Team, had arrived prepared to talk about his latest projects and perhaps share a funny anecdote or two. What should have been a breezy chat with Kelly Clarkson began to veer off course within minutes. At first, everything seemed normal. David charmed the audience with stories of working long hours on set and joked about trying to keep up with his kids' energy at home. Kelly, always warm and relatable, laughed along, steering the conversation toward music, something both she and David shared a passion for. But when the topic shifted to broader issues, Hollywood scrutiny, personal freedoms, and the pressures of being a public figure, David's demeanor changed. His voice hardened, and his gestures grew sharper. He wasn't cracking jokes anymore, he was making a point, and it was clear he wanted the audience to hear it. Then came the twist no one in the room, not even Kelly, seemed fully prepared for, a surprise second guest. Justice Samuel Alito, one of the most polarizing figures in the country, had been booked for the same episode. The decision, likely made by producers hungry for viral television, instantly set the stage for an unusual clash between the worlds of Hollywood and the Supreme Court. As Alito stepped out from behind the curtain, the applause was mixed, some clapped out of respect, others out of shock, while a few murmurs of disapproval rippled through the audience. Kelly's smile widened, her voice a little higher than usual, as she tried to keep the energy light. "Well, I guess we've got a very unique couch today," she said. The conversation took on an edge almost immediately. Alito sat with a calm, measured air, his presence commanding in its stillness. He spoke slowly, deliberately, with the authority of someone used to being listened to. David, on the other hand, fidgeted slightly, leaning forward as if bracing for a fight. When Kelly asked about the role of public figures in shaping conversations on freedom and responsibility, David launched into a passionate statement about how celebrities are unfairly judged, how every move they make is dissected, and how they carry the burden of being symbols rather than just people. His tone was fiery but sincere. Alito, listening with a faint smile, chose that moment to cut in. "That's the trouble with people in entertainment," he said coolly, his voice steady but tinged with condescension. "You thrive on drama, you play characters, you live in make-believe, and then you expect everyone to treat your opinions as profound. But the real world isn't a TV script. The stakes are higher." The audience let out a collective gasp. Kelly's eyes flicked nervously between the two men, trying to gauge whether this was just a bit of playful sparring or something more serious. David's expression hardened instantly, his jaw clenched, and he leaned toward Alito with a look that could cut glass. "With all due respect, Justice," David said, his voice rising just enough to echo across the studio, "you sit behind a bench in a robe while the rest of us live out here, dealing with the fallout of those decisions. Don't sit there and patronize me because I'm an actor. I know the difference between fantasy and reality better than anyone." A ripple of applause broke out in the audience, surprising even David. Kelly chuckled awkwardly, raising her hands in an attempt to diffuse the growing tension. Okay, gentlemen," she said lightly, "let's not scare my band away back there." The audience laughed, but the humor did nothing to soften the atmosphere. Alito smirked again, this time leaning back in his chair with the air of a man completely unbothered, as if David's passion only amused him. That expression was gasoline on fire. David's face reddened, his frustration spilling over as he pushed himself up from the couch. His microphone caught the sharp edge of his voice as he snapped, "You think this is funny? You sit there smirking while people pay the price for your decisions. I'm not going to sit here and play the part of some dumb actor while you belittle me." He began pacing the stage, his hands gesturing wildly, his voice cracking with emotion. The audience, now wide-eyed and silent, could feel the drama escalating beyond anything daytime television had ever expected. Kelly shifted uneasily in her chair, half rising as if she might physically step between them. David, let's just," she tried, but it was too late. David yanked off his microphone pack, the Velcro ripping loudly in the hushed studio, and slammed it onto the couch. Without another word, he strode off stage, his footsteps echoing against the set floor as the audience gasped audibly. The cameras cut awkwardly to Kelly, who forced a stunned smile, but the damage was done. Samuel Alito remained seated, his smirk firmly in place, looking more like a man who had just won a chess match than someone who had been confronted. The studio crackled with tension as producers scrambled behind the scenes, signaling frantically to cut to commercial. The smirk, the storm, the silence. In those few minutes, daytime television had shifted from casual entertainment to a battlefield, and the fallout was only just beginning. Part 2 of the chaos unfolded not on the stage itself but in the echo chamber of the outside world. Within minutes of the taping, clips of the confrontation began to leak online. Audience members who had been recording on their phones uploaded shaky footage to Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok before the show's producers could even decide whether to air the explosive episode in its entirety. The hashtags #Boreanaz storms off and #Alito smirk trended globally within an hour. The short, looping clip of Samuel Alito leaning back with that half-smile as David ripped off his mic and stormed out became an internet obsession, replayed endlessly in memes and remixed videos. Some added dramatic music, others froze on the smirk with captions like, "This is the face of smugness." The internet split down the middle. Fans of David Boreanaz praised his raw authenticity, claiming he had done what most people dream of, standing up to power and refusing to be dismissed. They flooded his Instagram comments with fire emojis, calling him a legend and the voice of the people. One viral tweet read, "David Boreanaz didn't just walk off a talk show. He walked off every smug dismissal we've ever had to swallow in silence." Meanwhile, others mocked him, arguing that storming off was childish and that Alito had displayed the poise of a man unfazed by theatrics. Pundits on morning cable shows debated the incident as though it were a political scandal, framing it as a cultural clash between Hollywood's emotional rawness and Washington's cold stoicism. For Kelly Clarkson, the fallout was more complicated. Known for her friendly, approachable persona, she suddenly found herself in the middle of a controversy she had never intended to spark. Tabloids splashed headlines like, "Kelly's stage turns into war zone," and "Daytime showdown." Clarkson caught in crossfire. Behind the scenes, sources reported that Kelly was furious with her producers. She had reportedly warned them against booking polarizing figures without clear guidelines for the conversation. "This isn't what my show is supposed to be about," she was overheard saying after the taping. Yet publicly, she tried to keep things calm, posting a carefully worded statement on social media, "Live TV is unpredictable, and sometimes conversations go in unexpected directions. I'm proud of my team and our audience for handling it with grace." David Boreanaz, meanwhile, found himself hounded by paparazzi. Photographers camped outside his driveway, and microphones were shoved in his face whenever he stepped out for coffee. At first, he refused to comment, keeping his head down. But after days of speculation, he finally released a statement, "I didn't go on Kelly's show to be disrespected. I went there to talk about my work and my life. I stand by what I said and how I reacted. Some people may not agree with me walking off, but I won't sit quietly while someone smirks at me like my perspective doesn't matter." His fans rallied behind him even harder, creating montages of his past roles set to inspirational music, painting him as a man unwilling to bow down. Samuel Alito, in stark contrast, remained silent. He gave no interviews, issued no statements, and offered no clarifications. That silence only fueled speculation. Was the smirk intentional? Had he baited Boreanaz on purpose? Or was it simply the habitual expression of a man confident in his own authority? Late-night hosts had a field day, joking about the smirk that launched 1,000 tweets. One comedian quipped, "Forget Roe v. Wade. Justice Alito's biggest legacy might be his facial expressions." The fallout extended beyond entertainment. Political commentators seized on the clip as evidence of a broader cultural divide. Some argued that Boreanaz represented everyday Americans, tired of being belittled by elites in ivory towers. Others claimed Alito's composure highlighted the need for calm, rational debate rather than emotional outbursts. Think pieces flooded the internet. The smirk heard around the world, what it says about America, why David Boreanaz is the hero we didn't know we needed, and Kelly Clarkson in the impossible role of keeping the peace. Inside NBC's headquarters, executives debated whether to air the segment uncut or heavily edit it. Some worried that sanitizing the confrontation would anger viewers who already knew what had happened through leaked clips. Others feared backlash from airing a sitting Supreme Court justice being called out on daytime TV. In the end, They compromised. The episode aired with only minor edits, but the walk-off and the smirk remained intact. Ratings soared. The episode drew one of the largest audiences in the show's history, proving that controversy, however messy, was good for business. Yet behind the buzz, the three central figures carried the weight of what had happened. For David, the storm-off became both a burden and a badge of honor. He worried about being labeled difficult, but he also felt liberated, as though he had finally said what so many people think when confronted by smug authority. For Kelly, the ordeal underscored the risks of live television, how quickly the tone can shift from joyful to confrontational. And for Samuel Alito, the smirk became a symbol, loved and loathed in equal measure, of the sharp divide between power and those who dare to challenge it. In the end, the confrontation was more than just a viral TV moment. It was a cultural flashpoint, a reminder that even in the carefully controlled world of daytime entertainment, truth and tension can barge onto the stage without warning. The cameras may have stopped rolling, but the debate they captured continued to ripple outward, long after David had stormed off, long after Kelly had plastered on her diplomatic smile, and long after Alito had leaned back with that unforgettable smirk.